Hello everyone, I'd like to give you some feedback from your self-assessment from Module 4. A number of you had discussed how you needed some clarification on a few issues, in particular the topic of capital appreciation bonds. Now, I understand that capital appreciation bonds is a topic that I lightly introduced last week, and it's something that we discussed in more detail in PA 615, Public Financial Management. But since our topic was on capital budgeting, and this is a peculiar and particular type of financing that in many cases school districts but local governments utilize to fund capital projects, I thought it was appropriate to bring it up. In addition, it's something that is on the public agenda in California. So just to give you some more information on capital appreciation bonds, they are another type of financing tool used by local governments. Now, some of the reasons why a capital appreciation bond may be issued as opposed to a more standard type of bond, which is considered a current interest bond, primarily lie in the fact that if a school district has maybe a poor financing structure or has been unable to repay debt at a solid or an appropriate rate, and some other prevailing circumstances, it may force them to issue a capital appreciation bond. Now, the capital appreciation bonds are issued, like I mentioned, to school districts, but the results are far more adversely impactful than a current interest bond. So if your bond rating was poor, then a school district may be more likely to obtain a capital appreciation bond as opposed to a current interest bond because of the poor bond rating that the local government faces, and the school district actually. Then they may be forced to issue a capital appreciation bond. It's not something that they would it wouldn't be their first choice. It would be something that they were kind of steered into. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but one of the reasons why these bonds have come up as being something that's seen as a negative is because many financial advisors from financial institutions have steered unwittingly school district officials and local governments into issuing these type of bonds because of the amount that's repaid to the financial institution, and the amount that's repaid back to the financial institution is larger because of the debt ratio that is associated with the capital appreciation bond. So as I mentioned, current interest bond may have a debt ratio of 2 to 1, maybe up to 4 to 1. So if you take out a loan essentially of $100 million, then you're repaying either $200 million or $400 million, which is it's okay, and it's really par for the course for local governments. That's what they tend to expect. But the capital appreciation bonds, because of their interest being accrued over time and repayment not due within a year or 2 years or 10 years, often 20 years, this makes the repayment amount much more significant and much more challenging and problematic for districts to look up and see after a year 20 that on a bond that was issued in 2014 for $100 million, that 2034 they're going to begin paying $20 million a year back for the next 10 years or so. So the amount that can be owed back to the financial institution can be as much as we've seen cases where they've been 15, 19 to 1. So you can do the math. I think I provided some examples from the city of Poway and the city of Fontana, where they issued bonds in the amount of around $100 million, but essentially will be paying back close to $1 billion, if not over $1 billion, when the debt becomes due. Now, some of you ask why this is the case and why why districts would even consider doing this. Well, many times it's because, again, the financial advisors have steered them in the wrong direction, that they're also unknowingly putting their jurisdiction or their school district in a bad place. Also, the financial advisors have, in many cases, a greater understanding of these complex funding structures. Now, also, some of you mentioned, why would when are there examples when a capital appreciation bond would be seen as a value or seen as a good thing? Now, there are examples when they are appropriate. So, for example, if you have a new community that's being built, and this new housing tract, maybe 200 houses, in addition to the houses that are built, there's maybe a new park, obviously new roads and all the like. Now, in addition to that, because the belief and the perception is that over time many people will move into these houses, into the 200 houses, and many of those folks will have families and have kids who go to school, that the new community may issue, or a capital appreciation bond may be issued by a school district there, with the expectation that over time the community will grow and taxes will be paid, and the capital appreciation bond will be able to be repaid without as much fanfare or as much trouble as, say, a district or community that isn't expected to have that high amount of growth over time. So there are a few cases where it is appropriate, although there are far and fewer than they are inappropriate. And again, there are cases, and we can talk about this tomorrow in class, where for various reasons those who are supporting the bond may have been essentially put into a corner. So say, imagine a school district official has run on the premise that a school board member has run on the premise that they're going to essentially build new construction or a new high school or a new addition to a school for the community. But as it turns out, the community is adverse to raising taxes, and the current interest bond is not a vehicle that can be used. So in order to prevent falling back on their campaign promises, they say, well, we'll issue a capital appreciation bond, so the debt isn't paid anytime soon, at least for the next 20 years. The district gets a new school, and the school board member, at least for the time being, keeps face. So that's another example of when it may be used. But the question does arise: is it something that is essentially kicked down the road? Is it an example of kicking the can down the road and allowing other residents of the community to pay the bill later on in time? Now, I will post a short excerpt from a paper that I've co-authored that looks at capital appreciation bonds and how it may be a predictor of local government bankruptcy in years to come. That'll be posted on Blackboard, and under the announcements, I'll also send you an email copy of that as well. Some of the other questions you had regarding Module 4 were in particular about, debt financing. One question was, in terms of debt financing, is the amount that's deposited or the amount that's included in the budget fixed or varied? Typically, almost always, it's going to be a fixed amount, so that you know exactly how much is being allocated to repay the debt on an annual basis. This is also important for bond raters, so that they can essentially assess how much is being paid over what given time period. Another question that you raised was on the topic of intergenerational equity, and in particular, is it a fair thought process, or is it a fair, theory? Now, intergenerational equity assumes that those who are going to be the beneficiaries of a service are going to be the ones who actually pay for the service. So that's where we see the notion of intergenerational equity not being violated in terms of pay as you use. So when we look at pay as you go, where you essentially do not finance a project, you pay for it all at once, at one given time, the notion of intergenerational equity essentially is violated, because the residents, say, of San Bernardino would pay for a new high school, and they'd pay for it in full, and essentially the high school would have a length of time to be operable for about 25 to 30 years. At the same time, those who have actually funded the high school are not expected to either live in the community that long or have children who are going to be in high school over 25 to 30 years. So that notion of intergenerational equity is violated. And pay as you use is a way to ensure that those who are benefiting from the service, in this case the high school, are actually paying for it on an annual basis through their property taxes and their school taxes. And we can go into this a little bit more, and again, when you do take PA 615, this topic will be discussed in more detail, but as for now, we can discuss this tomorrow evening in our class. Tomorrow we'll have really a full class in which we'll be discussing performance budgeting and the importance of managing for performance. We have a bunch of articles that were assigned, and the lecture has been posted. So if you do have questions regarding Module 4, we can discuss that at the beginning, and then we'll soon get into Module 5, and the topic is performance budgeting. Alright, we'll see you later.